Welcome to the Lair, a place where interesting people you may know tell you things you didn't. So grab a chair and your favorite vice and get comfortable. There are no rules in the Lair, but there is Laura Babcock. You know her from TV, and she is not into media monogamy. Let's find out who else is in the Lair.
Okay, so Lauren, what was it you were just saying, that Keenan is more than man meat? Context, please, sir.
We can't just talk about Keenan being handsome. He's so much more than that. He is an overtly socialist head of our Chamber of Commerce. And that is far more relevant than whatever he looks like.
I know it. So socialist and man meat in the first 10 seconds of the Lair. Welcome to the Lair. You haven't heard a show before. Now you get the vibe of it. Want to react to either accusation, either charge?
No, could we have a question?
Are you man meat and are you a socialist? I can phrase it in form of a question for you. So let's deal with the GQ2 thing first, because we were just joking before we got on the air about the fact that Keenan dresses well. Kind of a GQ thing. I bug you about it.
The peanut gallery said he's Martinez Galensi with a job.
That was you. You were the dick. Although someone in the peanut gallery did mention, who was the other guy you said was handsome, Michael?
Matt Jelly.
I'll go on record saying that.
Oh, no one said that about Matt. What's that? Sorry, Michael?
I'll go on record saying that.
Okay, Ryan Moran? Okay, I don't know this guy, but apparently I should have him in the Lair because he's handsome or well accomplished or something. I don't know. Anyway, Lauren's getting jealous here. So there's Martinez Galensi's very GQ-ish, and when Keenan hit town, he got a lot of magazine covers, and there was actually an ad for some men's suitwear that I thought was you, which I tweeted. I thought it was pretty funny. So, we're bugging you, which is kind of sexist. Why aren't we taking him because of his credentials, his experience, his bona fides? Why are we talking about his appearance, Lauren?
That's just part of my misogynistic way.
in a very strange adaptation. How about the other charge of you being a socialist head of the Chamber of Commerce? That one's easier to take, a little less awkward.
Wow, that would be very controversial if I was. No, there's. I think that I am a mix of a lot of ideologies.
Okay. Cool.
Depending on the issues. So.
See, I told you he's more interesting than just good in a suit.
Yeah.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Good. I'm glad you could come. So Lauren lands this charge because I think primarily your support of transit alternatives, of light rail transit, of getting people out of their cars, of urban intensification. Am I right? Are these the reasons?
And more.
Okay, so what are the reasons you're calling him a socialist?
I think that the Chamber is weighing in on issues under Keenan's leadership more so than, tourism. David Adames certainly brought it down the pipe.
You had your complaints about David Adames.
Very much so.
Because you said, how can a bureaucrat essentially have a
represent business?
Right, represent business, and then his board at the time were mostly heads of not-for-profits, and you thought it was a whole socialist ship.
But there seems to be a real shift that once Terry Cook became the municipal champion of social consciousness, then the business community doesn't understand anything anymore.
Okay.
And you representing the chamber is a part of that kind of New Hamilton.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Fair?
but how does that make him a socialist?
Yeah.
Well, it's a very socialist agenda in my mind for the chamber, which used to represent business, to be championing underdog causes.
No, but let's think about it for just a second, and we will let you talk at some point,
Okay,
Keenan.
yeah,
But
please.
No, we're just setting all this up.
yeah. I think it's far more nuanced than that. And Keenan did work in the U.S., so I'm sure he's aware of the inappropriate socialist charge you're trying to levy.
Yes.
So Keenan, do tell us, please, your response. Are your causes that you're championing the underdog and therefore socialist?
No, I'm championing city building causes, which I think ultimately redound to the benefit of every single institution in this community, including the businesses in this community. So when I talk about intensification, and transit and all that, it's all part of creating the type of city that 100,000, 200,000 new people want to flock to. If you look at the population projections. Over the next 20 years, we're supposed to be around 730, 740. So I would rather that the city grow in and up rather than out. And so those are the types of causes that I'm championing.
But I want to pick up on something that you just said there, that you are
a voice for the overall community, including the business community.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, the chamber was the voice of the business community, not and also.
Right.
And I think that's the point I'm making in terms of we not too long ago had a chamber of commerce that fought for business. The end.
Right.
You
Yeah,
don't
but-
just fight for
But
business.
that's such a simplistic argument. How is business a monolith? There are all kinds of different people in business. The creative industry is huge in Hamilton.
No, creative
Well,
industries
right?
are a business.
And the
Right.
not-for-profit community is also a big part of what we do here, a big part of the economy, and a big part of my membership. I mean, you have to understand, I have to speak on behalf of the membership as a collective, and there are a lot of different members that aren't just businesses or for-profit organizations. The city, for example, is actually a member of the Chamber of Commerce. So, and I've gotten this from many different people, including Senator Braley. He said, you have to do what is best for the city of Hamilton because that's ultimately what's best for the business community as well. So
See, he can't pull out a bigger conservative card than Senator Braley. Not that the Senate is particularly convincing argument on a night like tonight. Did you see Duffy? Did you see him this afternoon?
yeah.
Any thoughts on Duffy 2 and the second check?
Why would my thoughts matter on this?
Because you're in the Lair. Everything you say about
Place
it.
them in the Senate.
No, but here's my point, though, right? Is that if transit is improved, if light rail comes in, if it becomes more of a walkable community, this is what is going to attract the workforce of the future. This is what study after study says are what young entrepreneurs, very successful minds want. They want a city where they can be car free if they need to be. People under 30 aren't even thinking of investing in a car. They want to be in a livable city. They want to be, hold on, I'm not done. They want to be in a place where they can have their creative industries. They can flourish. They can have a great work-life balance, if not even balance, at least a successful urban lifestyle. And so it's surprising to me that the Chamber is getting on some of these particular issues because I haven't seen the Chamber ever do it, but it's appropriate given the data. It's appropriate
Laura,
given where the city's
I'm
going.
pointing out exactly that. I didn't pass judgment as to whether it be good or bad.
But it's not socialist to try to bring in good talent and build the workforce of creative,
that I use salacious language.
well, it's your thing.
and
You're
tend
probably.
to be hyperbolic.
And I tend to challenge it. It's just the way it kind of goes. But I don't even think it fits socialism on any kind of level.
Yeah.
It's what it's saying is let's be progressive. Is that a socialist concept for you?
A little bit.
Okay, well there you go. That's your issue.
Can I ask? I've been reading all over Facebook that 50% of people who are on our roads are now being represented with 25% of King Street. So that King Street, for every one person in a car, represents one in a bus. I have never been on any street ever during busy bus time that isn't overwhelmed with cars. If you back that up or otherwise, please cite your source. Like when has bus ever outnumbered the car traffic in town? And I mean by bodies, not in terms of vehicles.
Right. But I mean, if every bus has, for example, 50 passengers, that's
Yes.
50 cars. And we know.
Let's say cars have one.
Yeah. Right.
I tell you there's 50 cars for every full bus, easily.
Okay.
On the downtown I'm
Right.
driving through.
So that's a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's 50% in
There's
bus.
no, I'm saying there's not a chance that there's as many people on bus. Not even close.
The HSR ridership numbers.
I would say that the
Grab the
B
mic,
line
Justin, that's why-
is constantly packed. The B line is, and there's a B line
At
bus
limited
that's
times of
running
the day.
every 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
But Laura, at limited times of the day is King Street busy as well, period.
No.
Yes. Here.
No.
37,000 vehicles a day, 5 lanes wide, 37,000 vehicles per day. That's the number of cars. That's city traffic count. So you want to talk about how many people the B line is moving? From HSR's counts, it's moving more than that.
Who is this
Across the
masked
city,
man?
east
Who let
west.
him in?
Who let in the guy who knows about this stuff other than Keenan, our guest, right?
No.
Oh,
yeah,
me?
no,
Wait
and-
a sec.
and-
I
and
invited
this is,
Justin.
you know,
What?
and your point is
I'm
well.
asking
No.
because I
And
don't see it.
no, absolutely, Lauren. Your point is well taken, and I think that what you I think what you raise is an issue that we see a lot, is that it's hard to kind of identify the number of people in buses. People tend to dramatically overthink how many people are in cars versus how many people are in other modes of
one person per
transportation.
car.
Simply
Yeah.
because.
Yeah, exactly.
Shut up,
You're
Joey.
here, open data.
Yeah.
Joey's
Where's-
not here, but
where's
he's here in
Joey? Yeah,
spirit,
no,
right?
Open data. We just assume that it's just like a squeak in the floor when Joey's around. But so I mean, one person per car, it looks like a lot of people, even though it's not. But when you've got 120 people on a double long bus, and it just goes ripping by you, and it's one vehicle on the road, that's 120 cars that aren't there.
So let me ask you this, Justin, because obviously you're from Yes We Can, and you are a proponent of having the bike lanes and mixed transit usage and all that. How do you feel as, and you were living in Toronto for a number of years before you came back to Hamilton, how do you feel about the Chamber of Commerce having a stake in issues like this? Because honestly, I used to run a Chamber of Commerce, and the former Chamber CEO who was here for years, John Dolbeck, it was all about multimodal transportation, but not so much about the stance the Chamber's taken lately, although I don't know his opinion on it. We should have him in the Lair. But how do you feel about the Chamber taking what I consider to be more progressive positions on things?
I think it's great. Businesses don't exist in a vacuum. They don't exist in a bubble. They employ people that live, work, and play in this community.
Right.
Yeah,
They employ people that have families here. It's a good idea to try and make them comfortable here. Sorry, I'll let you take it, Keenan.
No, it's the Lair. He's learning, right?
But
It's not really your interview.
Yeah,
It's what we
okay.
think of you in your interview.
Well, what I'm trying to think about is, a city being a bunch of different systems, right? And to have a flourishing city, all of the various systems have to be in place as well. And right now I think we're a little out of whack in terms of giving so much prominence or preeminence to the car. We have for 50 years, and it's time now to. And you talk about, so what do you have to back it up? I mean, walkability is tightly correlated with
For those who
increased
live downtown.
property values. Yeah, yeah.
The vast majority of people do not live in anywhere where walkability resonates whatsoever.
Well, that's too
The
bad.
majority
for
of
them.
Hamilton lives in wards 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
That's where most of Hamilton resides.
Okay.
Then the suburbs.
So our downtown streets must be designed solely for them, and
No.
only their-
My question is
So they
that
can get
you're
to
the
east
guy
to
who
west
says-
in 10 minutes,
That
flat.
says the chamber represents the big picture of the city.
Right.
You're talking about building a livable community
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily create jobs, that doesn't necessarily improve quality of life outside of Ward 2.
But Lauren, as I said, so
Did you get your law degree in urban planning?
if we have so again, the projections over the next 20 years, a couple 100,000 new residents in the city. We could fit at least half of those in the lower city. We have all these vacant lots. We have,
Right.
inhospitable places right now on which to live and do business. And talking specifically Main, King, and Cannon. Imagine if we could turn those around, bring infill into the lots. I think we could definitely capture those 100,000 new people downtown, and that would benefit every single person, every single company downtown, especially
Right.
every single institution in this community.
So think for a
So
sec. I
what's
mean,
not
look at
to
your Renew
support?
Hamilton event that you did a little while ago. There was a number of things that I thought were really interesting. The talk about, Lauren and I had a laugh on the O Show about it, but the talk about York initially being envisioned as the Champs-Élysées of Hamilton, right? It's so far from that, but it's a great, it's funny, right? It's funny. If you haven't been there, you don't get it. If you have, you do. It's pretty funny. It's not the Champs-Élysées, but it has potential, right? It has
Yeah,
potential. And that was brought up at the event. But there was a lot of talk. I think what I hear from you, and this is why I'm okay with it, from a business owner in Hamilton. Yes, I live in the suburbs. Yes, I have a couple of vehicles. Yes, I have a downtown office. But I see with the all-day GO transit eventually coming, and with the potential of rapid transit, hopefully LRT, and with the boom that's coming with Hamilton. And we've got people in here who've just produced a video, Michael, and I'm sorry, your name, Chris, that produced a video that got everyone talking because it captured something about Hamilton, ambitious city. There's something going on here that you can't put your finger on, but it's real. And it's going to change the way that Hamilton operates. And so what I like about what I'm hearing from the Chamber is that it sounds to me like you're thinking about then. you're seeing, okay, what's it going to take for us to get those systems in place to
Yeah.
support that
Absolutely.
that vision of the city?
Yeah.
But that vision isn't universally seen, right? And so is the question for the chamber, I mean, I love that the first article I read of yours was, is the chamber relevant anymore? I thought, oh, thank God, someone finally just puts it out there, right? And just like I say to the Hamilton Club, I'm a member, but please prove your relevancy to me every couple of years. I love that you asked that question, but does the chamber have to do a dual role of both lobbying for these changes and also educating on that vision that
Probably.
you're sort of building towards, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you talk to someone who gets the vision, it's like, good on you. But if you're talking to someone like Lauren who drives his monster truck in from, you know, the wilds of Ancaster every day, he does not get what you're talking about. It's true.
I just want this city to have some balance. You know, that's it. I mean, this, you know, what is going on here is an embracing of the authenticity of the city. And it's certainly what attracted me here. That's why I live in the Lock and Charlton area.
Yeah.
And to me, we're not really capturing. And everybody talks about it. You know, oh, this city has such great potential. Well, yes, it does. So let's finally live up to it. And these are the things that we're going to need to actually live up to it. And Lauren, I don't care if you want to live in the suburbs. That's great.
I don't.
You know,
I
the
live in
great
the
thing.
country.
Okay,
I'm
so
not
the
a
great thing
suburban.
about this city is that we have the country, we have the suburbs, and we have the city. We have all three in abundance, and I just want to. I think the city will be best when it achieves some sort of balance between the three.
Right, and what I think is that the pendulum has swung too far the other way. That I don't see the chamber, Tourism Hamilton, or economic development getting even a semi when a restaurant opens outside of downtown, even though it's going to generate taxes, even though it's going to employ people. But God help you if you open one downtown.
Jump on the mic, guys.
Stop the presses, because it's not that downtown is just more important. It's the only thing. But the rest of us pay taxes too. And listen, I'm the convention center. I'm
Yeah.
the second largest property tax
Did everybody
payer,
hear that?
but-
Lauren is the convention center. They are one and the same. Mercanti family. Lauren just took over.
You can tell PJ whatever you like.
Oh.
I'm invested down here as well.
Yeah.
But I think that the pendulum has swung so far that it's alienating the rest of Hamilton. And Ward 2 is not real Hamilton. It's just a part of real Hamilton.
But isn't the true test of a city's viability its downtown? I mean, isn't that really the heartbeat of the entire city? And so while we might not go downtown a lot, and we might not have vested interest in
But it's
downtown,
not
the
paying
interest
the
is
freight
beyond
for the
that.
city. It's not our economic
But
engine.
okay, so
But it
what I
can.
always say, so we have the chamber has three divisions: Glanbrook, Dundas, and Ancaster. And then I work very closely with the chambers in Flamborough and Stony Creek. And what I always say to them is, to the extent it was ever true that the outlying areas, the ones that were forced to amalgamate with Hamilton, were subsidizing the downtown at some point, and maybe they still are. I ask, give us a chance to pay you back, you know, and this is how it's going to happen. And I think we can make the case that a thriving downtown will benefit everybody. Will benefit the family in Flamborough, or the family in Glanbrook, or Stony Creek.
When it generates more realty tax dollars and creates more jobs.
Right.
But isn't this all part of it? The
But this
systems
is all
he's talking
part of
about
it.
building
Yeah,
are
this
going
is
to be
exactly-
required
this
to
is about
attract the
building a
people to work at
city.
those, right? Like, because here's what I think is happening, and it's a fascinating conversation. We've seen different manifestations of it. Is that for so long, Keenan, and how long have you been living in Hamilton now?
For 4 years.
Okay, so I wasn't born here, but I've been here about 20 years. You're a lifer, right? Yeah, exactly. So we don't hear about that other part of your past now. So for so long, there has been a discussion here that has been about limits, that has been about survival, that has been about regret and remembrance almost. And a shift has happened, hence the tipping point thing that we did, the doc. A shift has happened where now we're not talking about pipe dreams or fantasies that we'll be let down on. We're talking about, okay, there is actually momentum, and there are actually people who want to source us as a place to start their businesses, grow their businesses, move to. because they can get to all the cool stuff all the way around. There's lots of cool stuff locally. It's affordable, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to sound like an infomercial for the city. I don't even need to anymore. You know, I used to
We
do those.
have one.
No, we are one. We are one. You know, I like the video that was done, but all the years of all the campaigns that we've done, they were to get people motivated. Now people are motivated and the momentum is real. It's not perfect, but it's real. So what Keenan and the Chamber are doing, I think, is flipping it on its head from what it used to be and saying, okay, we're not just going to focus on, you know, the hyper-local, hyper-specific needs of business and take them to the Ontario Chamber and the Canadian Chamber to fight for this or that. We're going to say, let's take a city building perspective, because the key to success of the businesses in the city are that we have the infrastructure and the systems that support that growth. And that's a different conversation. I mean, all the Chamber ever talked about for years and years was how to keep our taxes low, how to make sure that we had just-in-time delivery capabilities with our transportation gridlock. Intermodal, but they didn't get past those things. And now they're talking about, I see it as rebuilding the framework of the city, which is ambitious.
Yeah, and
not to go to your video, but you know.
in Lauren, I mean, I celebrate the opening of every business in this community. I was at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Ancaster on Friday. I mean, that's all part of it. But what I'm trying to, or what, you know, we're trying to focus on is where we can have the greatest impact, and that's
Right.
where, you know, the downtown has been neglected for so long. You know, that's where we could, you know, in the tech industry and in innovation, we always talk about hockey stick growth. And that's where you're going to achieve that, where you're going to hit that trajectory where all of a sudden you're not just inching along, but now you're really exploding. And it's going to happen downtown when all this latent demand sort of, you know, gets fed and where, you know, all the young people start to congregate because that's exactly where they want to be.
So let me ask you this. If you take the top 15 articles in the last 14 months about Hamilton, like outside of market, have any of them had anything to do with changes in the suburbs, or has it all been about the downtown?
It's all been about downtown.
So this is my point, right? Is the heartbeat of a city, its viability is the downtown. When I hear negative stuff, like we heard from your tour friend the other day, Lauren, it's because they book a downtown hotel, they go to Jackson Square, and they see Hamilton as it has been for 20
Band
years.
Place, Hamilton
Right.
Place, they stay
Right.
at Sheridan, they wander the mall.
So, but this-
they think they're in a zombie movie.
But this is my point, is that their
We all want
perceptions,
that fixed.
but their perceptions are of downtown. That's what we export. That's
my
the
God, of
impression that we
course.
have. So my point is this: is that why shouldn't the Chamber, for the bigger picture sustainability and system creating for the city, focus its efforts on downtown? Why is that somehow not helping the rest of us when downtown is
No,
really the
because-
icon of the city?
Because the employers.
So this is not an interview. Laircast is an argument. You're
The employers elsewhere in the city are helping deal with the perception issues elsewhere as
Right.
much as the new developments that are happening downtown itself.
So what do you want the Chamber? Are you still a Chamber member?
I am.
Okay, so what do you want the Chamber to be focusing on? If not,
I have two direct
Okay,
questions
all right,
for
yeah, go
Chamber. My
nuts.
first one is, and I suppose you have a board of directors
I
that
do,
would
yes.
have to advise on
Yes.
this. Will the Chamber, and I'm not interested in a some sort of horseshit scorecard.
this is
or
the Lair
otherwise,
cast. Can't have horseshit answers, right?
But will the Chamber be out and out endorsing one way or the other on mayor and councillors?
No. Not
So
at all.
you've clearly heard a rumor that they will be, or you went to pose that question. So which one of your operatives is concerned that Chamber's going to back somebody other than Bertina?
Just a
Come
simple
on,
man having
come
a
on,
beer.
come on. Spill them
No,
beans. Come on.
absolutely not.
All right.
You're going to rely on, you reflect the opinions of your membership. Yes?
No.
So did you get the contract to work with
I
Bertina,
have-
or is this a Lloyd thing? I just need to know who you're backing, dude.
I have to work with everybody in a position of influence in this community, and so yeah, that would be the first way to really, you know, destroy a relationship is to, you know, pick
but
somebody
oftentimes
other than the person
A
that
chamber
actually
like
wins.
Environment Hamilton doesn't endorse anybody,
Right.
but they create their own scorecard
Yeah.
based on their own
So
criteria.
you're worried that a progressive scorecard will come out, in which case whichever candidate you're
Not
working
at all.
for is going to fail.
Not at all. Still, as progressive as the chamber is, it remains the only public body that is, at least in part, a voice for business. It's still the friend of business more so than
Yeah.
Right, so it's the voice
Anybody
of business,
else,
right?
yeah.
That's the chamber tagline. So what's your second question? Because you said no to that one.
okay. And thank you for what I
He's got you on the record now, and if you
Perceived to be
do,
an
he'll
honest
come after you.
answer.
No,
Like,
I
What I
seriously
perceive
won't.
to
I
be
don't,
an
I don't want to
honest
get involved in that quagmire.
when before I ask the question will change depending on the answer to when did you take over at the chamber?
June of this year.
Okay, so a very contentious issue that the chamber came out publicly on, I'm assuming well before June, in a utterly horseshit manner because they took both sides of the coin.
according to you. Yes.
No, on the casino issue in the chamber.
Oh my God, he's a casino lobbyist, as you know. Aren't you? You don't work
Gambling
for
is
Rock.
filthy, as are all vices.
You don't work for
Laura.
Rockhammer. You don't work for Rockhammer.
No, I do not.
Okay. Anyway, I
Was
just
there
want to
a
give you
question?
context,
So that
right?
no,
right.
no, the question is that wasn't your doing. That
Right.
that predates your
Right.
tenure. It is an issue
Yeah.
for the upcoming election, perhaps,
Right.
if not otherwise.
Right.
Under your tenure, where does casino fall? I don't want to talk about casino. I'm just curious as to the business.
But what's your opinion on the casino?
Yeah, exactly.
No, not your opinion. I'm not asking
yeah,
your
no,
opinion. I'm
no,
asking
they-
your
so-
chamber
Lauren is
opinion.
afraid that you will block a downtown casino.
We
he just
did.
wants to know if you will.
We conducted a study, or a survey of our members. Yeah, it was like 40-40 split, 20 undecided, and so again, we're the voice of our members, and how can you go out on one side or another on that?
Lauren,
that
didn't you
issue
read
when
his
it's a 40-40
comments in
split?
today's Spectator on this? They talked about the election issues a year from now, and he said, we will represent the interests of our members. The casino issue is very split, so clearly, he already said this on the record today. Do you not believe that? Or you didn't read it?
I don't know. No, I am
Well,
that.
but- So Keenan, Lauren mentioned earlier that you were a lawyer,
Yes.
and you've been in Hamilton for 4 years.
Yes.
And by now, anyone listening is like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
We know
Because
he's handsome.
well, you've clearly established that, and actually the chamber retweeted that. I said, "Is it fair that Lauren's going after him for his spiffy style?" And they retweeted it. So we'll get a Twitter response.
Thank you, Marie.
Yeah, no, I took a great picture of the tie and the socks. But tell us
That's
how.
all he's wearing, by the way.
No, yeah.
It's kind of freaking me
You're
out.
getting a little excited, Lauren, for a guy with a beard. But when I got to know you a little bit, we had coffee a few months back.
Yeah.
I was really fascinated by what you were doing prior to being here and what kind of drew you to the chamber, because you're not somebody who came up through the chamber ranks per se. You had a very successful career doing other things. So I think for anyone listening, to match sort of the way you position things, I think it's informative to know kind of where you're from. So can you tell us a little bit about the cool work you were doing in D.C. and why you left?
Yeah, well, so I went to law school in Virginia. I'm American by birth, but lived there
You
until I
love
was
Americans. You're a total Republican.
moved when I was 12 to Canada and went to high school here. Went to Waterloo, and then decided to go back down for law school. And then I practiced law for 5 years there in Washington, and hated almost every minute of it.
Really? There wasn't a moment before the disillusionment?
No, I mean the moments were all in extracurricular activities.
Right. The drinks after when you knew all.
So like I was on the pro bono committee and the recruiting committee, and I was on all that other social stuff.
Right.
I loved that part of being in a law firm, but you have to bill.
But was it cool being near the power though?
It was very cool. It was exactly everything I wanted. I worked in the largest lobbying law firm in the world, Aiken Gump, Strauss Hauenfeld, and we had a lot of ex-politicos. Ken Melman, the former head of the RNC, was a partner in our firm.
One of your heroes? Lauren?
Tom Foley, R.I.P., the former Speaker of the House who just died last week. We had just a lot of high-powered attorneys there, and that was very cool. It was cool to rub elbows with them, but I always thought that government service was a higher calling, and you get disabused of that notion pretty quickly when you get immersed in that, and so At some point, I
Not to fall back to the Senate scandal, but
yeah.
same kind of idea.
No,
right?
at some point, I decided, okay, I always wanted to be in D.C., spent 5 years here, check. All right, time to move on because, nobody's from D.C. You never feel like you're actually part of a community there. And so
It's
I always...
really an ambition destination.
Yeah. Oh, well, it's a city full of valedictorians. And you can imagine how that becomes, after a while.
Before we move your story out of DC, can you tell us what you were lobbying on behalf of?
Yes, and what did you do to cause you to hide in Hamilton?
No, there's a few stops before.
Well, I was a litigator, so I wasn't a lobbyist. We had a large part of our law firm was devoted to lobbying. I'm sure some of them were causes I wasn't supportive of.
But it sounds
and
like
some
they
of
were
them are.
Republican in nature. Given
No,
your partners?
No, it was pretty well split. It was
Okay.
it was one of those law firms that decided we are going to, even if there's if Democrats are in charge, we're still going to maintain a Republican roster of lobbyists because it always swings both ways, and so you never
So
want
they're
to get
pragmatic.
yeah, very pragmatic. And so we represented a lot of large companies. That's the thing with white shoe law firm practice in the U.S. You're really limiting yourself to the Fortune 100.
Explain the white shoe. You mean people who wear white shoes in Florida on holidays, or what's the
No,
white shoe reference?
no, it's just that's
After
your
Labor
more
Day faux
traditional
pas?
sort of law
Okay,
firm
okay, I
practice. The old three-piece suit type of
Okay.
practice. So.
Okay, I never heard the white shoe
Yeah.
before.
But yes, we operate. There were a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats together in one law firm, and it works because everybody was out there, for our own collective self-interest. And again, so you gotta hedge your bets, right?
So you were in a viper pit full of valedictorians, and
Yeah.
everyone was declared self-interest.
Yeah.
And how could that get tiring after 5
Married to a
years?
Hamilton girl.
Well, yeah.
Married
so
to a Hamilton girl.
So this is.
A Brebeuf girl. No
Yeah,
less.
Brebuffian. Yes.
Please don't go down that line. So
She is.
yeah, I know you. So
I'm from Brebeuf.
yeah, you went to Brebeuf.
yeah?
Maybe you know her.
All right, go Braves.
There you go.
Oski Wheelie. Oh, sorry, that's the Ebi Gabagool. But
So was it love that brought you to Hamilton, like it was for me?
Yeah.
It was.
Love of Cable 14?
Love of Rob. I
Oh.
married Rob.
No,
Duh.
We.
And then I fell in love with the city.
I
should
always
put on the
say
record.
that we came back here as refugees, really. Like,
Wow.
Again, so in
From the threat of
2009,
Romney being the president, or what?
no, in 2009 the economic shit hit the fan, and people in my law firm knew that I was not happy with the practice of law, and so at one point. On a cold February day, just after my daughter had been born, after the Obama inauguration, I got called into the office by my practice partner, who said, "We're letting a lot of people go tomorrow, and you have the opportunity to participate in this." So I'm wondering, okay,
Only
so
a lawyer
what's
can do
my
that
choice
so
here?
well. There's a
But-
party going on, and you can join it.
Yeah, but I leapt at the opportunity because I knew that I just couldn't do this anymore, and this was my best
And
opportunity.
as you told me, you got to be part of the inauguration, which was a super cool
Yeah,
moment.
the inauguration was really cool, and that was also the kind of the thing for me in DC was that, if you can remember back then, a lot of hope and change was coming to
That was the best
to the
moment of
Capitol.
Washington,
Oh,
yeah.
it was. It really was. It was a great zenith, at that point. But then, things never changed after that. And it really devolved very quickly back into, and it in fact got worse.
The beer summit didn't help. We all thought if they had beers
no.
together at Obama's place, it would all work out. It
Yeah,
didn't.
well, yeah.
Stop with your filthy lies.
Obama
made everything better.
It made a lot of things better, but
It
not
ended
enough.
up, the Republicans decided, all right, we're going to get in the way of
They
everything.
literally
We're
had
never
a
going to
meeting
say
the night, right?
yes.
They literally had a meeting that night in Washington and
Yeah.
decided we'll block everything he does.
Absolutely, and then of course it also came out. It emerged after that as well that Obama wasn't anything
Rob, can
different.
you pay our
He
pizza
was
friend?
still part of the system. It was all very much the same, and so
Yeah.
I thought at that time that I wanted to be like I had the opportunity to move into a job in Capitol Hill,
Right.
which is always what I really wanted to
Right.
do, is to again the highest calling, And at that point, it was just becoming so poisonous that I decided, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to leap into that when, basically, also at that time, our kids were, well, we just had our second, and we'd been living for a couple of years, isolated from family, and decided, and again, things were really bad in the U.S. at that time, and I decided, what if I actually want to live in Canada? And it seems much more secure. That's where my family's from. My kids, need to grow up near their families. And, again, my in-laws said you can live in our basement for a while when you figure things out. And so we came back here. I was looking all over
So
the
you
area.
went from being like a high-powered DC attorney
to living in my
to
in-laws'
living in your in-laws'
basement.
basement in Hamilton.
At 35 with 2 kids. Yeah, it was
Wow.
It was the most emasculating experience of my life.
And he
It was-
represents our business community.
yeah, I know.
Debit, honey.
Yeah.
They don't take debit? I did not
And
know
that's
that.
I think that was around the time that I met you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Credit? Use my credit card.
So your first gig, or did you have something before that was hooking up with Chamberlain?
my first gig was actually working with Martinez on the Hamilton 24.
Oh my
Film
God, we're
Festival.
full circle. The
Yeah.
GQ1 and
Twins.
GQ2 are
Yeah, so Martinez and I worked together for a good.
So well, hold on. So you're in your in-laws' basement
Yeah.
with 2 children, and I'm sorry, my friend, but having 2 small children, I cannot conceive of that.
You're very
Um,
kind in-laws.
And going
they
and,
are the best in-laws.
and
ever,
going
yes.
from like shishy frou frou, I'm a big
Yeah.
shot, to I'm in the basement
Yeah.
of this town.
Yeah.
How did you connect up with Martinez, other than your sense of fashion?
Well, I started to network my ass off. Desperation will do that for you. You
Wow.
gotta find a job, mouths to feed. So I went to a networking event. We moved here August 30th, 2009. I went to one of the creative exchange networking events, and at that event, so I get into the room and I'm like, okay, I'm obviously not in the right place, but I saw a guy in a
So what
dressed
made you think that?
pretty
The
well. It
clothing
was
or
just
what?
like all of a sudden it was
You
just
saw
like
a guy dressed very well. It is the clothing.
I was just like, okay,
You figured it out.
I'll
These
leave that
guys don't
unsaid.
live in their mom's basement like I do.
I,
So the good dressing drew you
But-
to Martinez.
But well, no, I actually went up to Glenn Norton first, and I said,
Another handsome man.
I know the guy in the suit is the guy that makes things happen. I'm
Right.
and
You
I
know the guy in
introduced
the suit is
myself.
the guy who
He
makes
was the
things
only guy
happen?
in a suit.
Interesting.
And so I went up to
Comments?
him.
Anyone?
He
Anyone?
ended up being
Horse commercial.
Yeah.
he ended up
I'm just
being.
looking around. Sorry, not to bug you, but I'm looking around, and literally half the guys in this room don't wear suits.
Yeah,
so
it's
you know
okay.
that comment might get you beat up.
It was my pickup line.
Oh,
You know.
yeah, all right.
So he ended up being the exact perfect person to meet at that moment.
Right.
He was
My
a connector
first
for you?
person, because he told me you need to look at what Mark Chamberlain's doing at MIP, and you also need to meet this guy who's right over here, and it's Martinez Galenzi. So it just sort of all
That's great.
happened
Wow.
that one night.
So you went from that to within a few years being the CEO of the chamber.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And I love that background because I think it's important, right? It's like when people hear your ideas, like Lauren, they might seem like they're a little too ambitious or a little too, as he puts, urban-centric or downtown-centric, but you're not coming at it from a guy who's doing it for fun. You're coming
No.
at it from someone who's
I
being in successful big cities,
love.
right?
I fell in love with this city, and I always say, but I actually fell in love with a future Hamilton, right? The one that actually
Right.
lives up to the potential that
the one
everybody
that you
talks
see.
about,
Right.
and that's really what I'm dedicated to.
So you know what
is
you're having an
doing
issue with?
everything we
You're having an
can.
issue with a chamber leader who has vision, not a manager, someone who's leading.
I'm stuck right here that we've got a head of our chamber who can call Obama.
Who can
that's
call
what I
about? Okay.
He was
I,
there.
yeah, I just have to let you know something. I have a photo of you with an
Yes.
Obama hat on. Because you fell for the hope and change too, you little liar. You did.
I went all
Mr.
the way to
Republican.
Philadelphia
I know.
to hear his first speech post-election, pre-inauguration. I'm all jaded and shit now.
Yeah, but the point is, you're an
Me too.
Obama lover, so you can't hold that against him.
No.
Oh, come on. He held out on the debt ceiling
I
thing.
worked hard for McCain that
He
year.
stepped up. He got health care through. Not what we
firm
wanted.
too.
Not what we wanted. So given that you've seen, let's say, the big show,
Yeah.
And you come back to Hamilton, not entirely dissimilar from me. I didn't grow up here, and when I came here, I also fell in love with what it could be. Right? It's
Yeah.
got the bones of amazing,
Yeah.
and it's got engagement like no other city I've been a part of.
Yep.
And you put that together with some really good decisions and some really grassroots things, and all of a sudden you've got something magical.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I can see that.
We're
and,
right there.
and people,
We're at the
yeah,
precipice.
We are. But, for years people mocked me for being too much of a booster of the city. And I'm like, just because I see the potential that you don't, and I'm not jaded by past that I didn't experience, shut up, right? And now we're at a point where it's more boosters and less critics.
Mm-hmm.
And you're coming in, as the head of the business lobby, and you're saying it's not just about hyper business issues, it's about city building issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that is rubbing some guys like Lauren a little off, because that's not been the role of the chamber
Yeah,
historically.
it's not an either or proposition. I always try to find the win-win-win in every scenario, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Have a win.
Yes, it does. I truly believe that you're not being creative enough if that's the case.
And Lauren, you're like
Lack
an
of creativity has never
Is
been.
what's your email address? Creative. What is it?
There you go.
Yeah. What is it?
Creative enough. Blow me.
Yeah. No, Lauren, as you know, runs Festival of Friends and is an artist, was an actor.
Yes.
Is
I'm all the things that I detest. Oh well.
Self-loathing.
he's a self-loathing actor.
Okay. In that vein.
Yes.
That's
And
classic.
I don't mean to be a dick.
We've had a breakthrough.
It's true, doctor.
I do have the Oprah effect. It's weird, man. I can't account
I'm
for
being
it.
serious and not being a dick. In spite of all our potential and the rest of it, do you not feel like an A-League guy in a B-League city? Coming from DC,
No.
this isn't Toronto, buddy.
I know it's not.
You ever been to DC?
I don't.
I love Baltimore.
Yeah, it's more your kind of town.
This,
No, it's a serious question.
yeah.
That
no. I
Justin,
get
could
it.
I get some more
But
of the mics there?
In order for this to be an A-League city, we need a bunch of A-Leaguers, right? And I knew that given what I had done in DC and
Thanks,
the
Philadelphia.
people I
Doing
had
it. Thanks.
I had met and the work that I had done, that I could contribute here immediately.
Keenan, we are not run by a horde of valedictorians.
Okay.
But we
not.
have them among us. I mean, present company notwithstanding, some of us do very well, and we're bigger outside of this market than we are in this market. And there's all kinds of talent, both new to the city in the last 10 years and from the city. It's a matter of letting everyone know you won't be disappointed by sticking your neck
But
out.
you were at the show.
Yeah. But I got to the mountaintop and I did not like the view.
All right.
Like that's
fair.
seriously it.
Right.
Part of it. This was also. I mean, I just love the cause that is this city.
Right.
It's
You feel like
it's
you
the
make a
thing that gives
difference.
me purpose and meaning in my life.
sure.
It's something that I never felt in Washington.
And we're not, no offense to Sudbury, but we're not Sudbury. We have the bones. I know. I'm just, no, I'm saying. We, as someone who's been across this country many times, we are one of the few cities in this country with a really successful history, with a really fantastic bones.
Discount our potential. We don't suck.
No, forget about the potential. I'm just saying historically, we are one of the greats, right? And that's not something you can replicate or create just because you want to. So when you travel across this country, there are like a handful of cities that have the kind of bones and the kind of history and the kind of legacy that Hamilton has.
Without crossing the border.
So, no, hold on, let me
Going to
finish.
DC
So-
to Chamber of
But my,
Commerce in Youngstown.
but my point is, right, is that he's not running the chamber in Sudbury from DC. He's running the chamber in Hamilton, which used to be the top, if not the second top city in the country. Hamilton has a powerful past. It
And
does.
I come from very humble roots.
Your socks would indicate differently. I just have to be honest.
In upstate New
Oh,
York,
come on, you see-
raised by a single mother, teenage mother, and very economically depressed. And I go back there all the time, and believe me, I'm much happier being here than I am there. I'm not.
So
an
let me ask you
elitist.
about that, because what's super, you always criticize the property industry in this city, right? But a huge reality of the city is that there's a great disparity. You know, everyone who talks about the disparity between the rich and the poor, there's no better city to look at it than Hamilton. And if you look at the fact that there is going to be this great momentum and some wealth creation, there's a whole lot of people who can't be left behind. I didn't know that about you, and it's not to say that it's the only defining factor of who you are, but if you come from a background where you have empathy towards people who just simply didn't have advantage and simply were fighting to survive, how do you, I know all kinds of people when they hear this Laircast, Keenan, are going to go, oh my God. I had no idea that Keenan, who looks like he just came from the big show, has an empathy for what, a huge part of Hamilton is going through. So how do you translate that awareness of what that experience is like into being the head of the lobby of business?
Well, I mean, it takes a lot to overcome those structural impediments by being, raised in poverty. I think my mother, just taught me, self-reliance and in having ambition and I don't know, that it was just something that I always did. I always knew that I was going to strive for higher things, and so I just haven't stopped.
But you hit that kind of, let's say, pinnacle in terms of commercial success,
Yeah.
right? In Washington, you got to the top of your field, top
Yeah.
law firm,
Yeah.
top city.
Right.
And now you're thinking to yourself, well, I have the skills that can pay those bills, but what I really want to do is take this city, not Sudbury, but a city that has great past, great potential, and great momentum,
Yeah.
and put those skills towards that.
Yeah, why
But you'll do it with an eye in mind for the people who might get left behind. And this goes
Absolutely.
back to the Renew Hamilton thing, right, Richard? Is that we did a thing on the Oath Show last week that you'd be aware of, where someone thought that somebody at the Renew Hamilton talked disparagingly about the poor people in the downtown. And so I pursued it with Richard, and there was no evidence that supported that. And Richard was able to give me the founding principles of Renew Hamilton, which is an arm's length thing of the chamber, which talked about moving everybody up, not out.
Right.
And so that's going to be a key part of this growth, is how do we make sure that it's good for everyone in Hamilton?
Right.
I mean, I'm not talking about a socialist utopia. You can't take everyone along, but there's got to be a point where, to hear the head of the Chamber of Commerce say, I come from a background that understands the need to have that option or that chance or that support, I think is very powerful. I think it informs it going forward.
Little town north of Syracuse called Fulton. I was born in Oswego, which is on Lake Ontario, but on the other side.
Well, you're a fascinating guy. That's why we invited you to the Lair. We
Thanks.
didn't have David in. We didn't have John in, although John's an interesting guy in his own right.
Wait a
But-
second, Toronto's on the other side of Lake Ontario.
You're very weird, Lauren. They're having a secret whispering conversation here.
No.
But
Yeah, that joke didn't bomb.
no, my point is that we wanted you in because you're interesting and you're doing interesting things and you're pushing the bounds of what some chamber members feel comfortable with, and you're probably enticing a lot more people to want to be part of the chamber.
Yeah, we're growing.
But you're doing it from a point of view, as I said before, you're not managing, you're leading, right? You're setting out a vision, you're moving towards it. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. But I think it's interesting whenever I meet a leader about where they come from. It informs us, right?
Yeah, and I'm trying not to be ideological. And I am first and foremost an empiricist. I truly try to get back to what is going to allow us to achieve success, and embracing urbanism, embracing growth in the downtown. I don't think those are radical concepts, especially given the demographics.
But you're not just embracing,
where we're
you're leading and
Yeah,
you're pushing.
well.
And that's why you had a guy here, Lauren. I don't
Somebody
know how,
has to.
I don't know how well, right? But this is the point for a guy like Lauren, who, if you don't know him, is usually behind successful political campaigns, in addition to all the other things he does, often as a shadow consigliere. But the point is, for him to ask you pointed questions like, are you going to do this kind of survey and are you going to take this position, means he's worried about your influence, which is a good thing, right? It's a good thing to know. I just have to, call out the wolf in the room, just so you know the sheep's clothing he's not wearing very effectively. So thank you for being here.
All right.
And what did you think of your first Laircast?
I loved it.
It's kind of
I'll
weird.
Be back,
Eh?
yeah.
It's a little different, eh?
Yeah.
But I thought you could take it because it's as someone said to me the other day, what are we going to talk about? I said anything and everything.
Yeah.
So thanks for being game.
Thank
And
you.
thanks for being candid and interesting. And we will definitely have you back. And I can't wait to see what people think of this.
Excellent.
Thanks,
Thank you
Keenan.
both.
Good job.
Chats in the Lair is a Power Group production. Visit us at powergroup.ca or laircast.com, or check us out on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.